Hey y'all, it's me, the Glow Up Is. How y'all doing? I hope that you all are doing great. So far, so good. I am doing wonderful, y'all. I had a great week. Oh my God. Listen, we still gonna grow together and glow together. I hope y'all out there glowing. I hope y'all out there are glowing. Grow to glow. That's what we do, right? Sometimes it's not easy, right? But we know that life is gonna life and God's still gonna be God because that's what God does. That's exactly what he does. So last week we talked about resting in God, like resting in him, knowing that he has everything under control, right? This week we want to talk about each other. Let's talk about each other. We go, what we doing is right, we holding each other accountable, and that's what I do, right? I'm holding, listen, when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me, right? And so the reality is that if we grow together, we're going to glow together. The light is automatically going to shine because that's what we do. That's who we are, right? And so I just want to be intentional on today. And so today's message, it was crazy because I had a lot of people, reaching out and had been asking about some things and some tips on how I even got here with doing this podcast. And I wanted to really share a little bit of that background story with that because I've always been an encourager, right? We all have gifts. We all have gifts. And I know that at the end of the day, God has actually called me to encourage his people and encourage myself while doing so. And so this is how the glow up really even got started in the first place. And so today I had sent, some messages to some of my homegirls, some of my family members, and I was just letting them know to be intentional on today, right? Because sometimes what happens is that we get so focused on life and we get so focused on the circumstances, we get so focused on the issues, we get so focused on the things that it is that we want that we forget about God. We forget focus, right? And we also forget about ourselves. And so, being intentional, right, with ourselves and being intentional with what it is that God has called us to do, whether or not if it's doing a podcast, whether or not if it's writing a book, is being obedient, right, and being intentional with it, making an effort to show Him that this is something that you really want to do. Because if we don't show Him effort that this is something that we really want to do, how in the world can we even really get to the next level? How can we even really establish ourselves? How can we really even grow? A lot of times we don't even take accountability for the things that we do, let alone the things that we've already done, right? And the reason why we don't do that is because we have people that will try to tell us that, this is not right for you, or this is not right for you, and you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. But God has called you. So I kind of really want to focus on who is in your ear. Who is in your ear? And a lot of times, right, we're battling with things within ourselves. And even though we battle with these things that are within ourselves, right, um, it can be tough, right? Because we are battling with ourselves and we're going in the opposite direction, or we're going in a way where things seem uncomfortable. It's like God turned up the heat and I don't really know how to maneuver through this thing. But God says that he would never leave you nor forsake you. So because he said that he would never leave you nor forsake you, do you really believe that? Do you really believe that, or do you believe what the people said? So I kind of wanted to take y'all to the book of Genesis, right? Going back to the book of Genesis, and I think about Adam and Eve, and I think about um how they got played. Like Eve really got played first, right? Because what ended up happening was is that the serpent came to her and presented her with an opportunity, right? And what he did was he validated her feelings. He validated, that she wanted more. He saw that she wanted more. He saw that, this was an opportunity because now she's by herself. I ain't got to go through Adam because listen, when it's two, right, that's together, then I can't really get there. You know what I'm saying? But if I can get you by yourself and get in your head to make you think, right, to make you think less of yourself, if I can get in your head to talk you out of the book that you're supposed to be writing, if I could talk you out, right, of the things that it is that you are called to do, right, if I could just get you to get in your own head and I can just validate your feelings, then I can stop what's supposed to be purposed for your life. So, who has your ear? Who are you listening to? Right? Who are you listening to? And it's crazy because even to the serpent, and I sit here and I think about that, right? The serpent really gave Eve, tried to give Eve the direct words of what God said. Like, did he really say that? Did he say you would surely die? No, that's not what he said. And it make it sound good, right? Because it's like, no, but if you eat the apple, so I can only imagine where she was with this thing because she already had a desire, right? To want to try this thing out. She already had a desire because she kept probably looking at it. I can only imagine she probably kept looking at this tree like, but Brad Day, he already told us not to do, you know what I'm saying? He told us not to. Like I can eat from everything else, but not this one. So she probably was curious. And I think some of us at a time, in a time and place, right? In some type of way, we all get curious sometimes. We get curious to try to figure out, okay, well, why? You know what I'm saying? I used to be one of those kids. I can honestly say that, right? I was a very curious child. I used to ask my mom all the time, why though, mom? Why? You know what I'm saying? Why I can't do this? Why I can't do that? But why? And she would really explain it to me, right? But at the same time, right, when your parent or your father, but your parent, your guardian, whatever, right? And in this case, your father, who is God, right? Your spiritual father, right, is telling you not to do this for your own good. They're not telling you not to do it, right? Because it's something that's good, right? It's telling you no, because I know the results of that. I know the consequences of this thing, right? And I can only imagine the serpent trying to understand, like, man, if God told them not to touch from that tree, I'm going to tell them to do the opposite of that because he was already jealous. He was already envious, right? And he doesn't like us. He doesn't even like us. Like he already knows what it's like to be in God's presence already. So he wants us to join him. He wants us to join him. He doesn't want us to win. He wants to set us up. He wants to put us in a trap, right? And he wants us to feel guilty, but he wants to validate all of our emotions and our feelings and these senses that God has given us. And we have to literally be mindful of how we use the gifts that God has given us, even to these senses, right? Because they are gifts. They are absolutely gifts. But are we utilizing them for his glory? We're utilizing them for our good and for our own glory and for our own satisfaction because of our own curiosity. Have you looked at it like that? That's why I say, who is in your ear? Who's talking you out of the things that God has called you to do? God has put so much inside of you, right? And he put so much inside of us that we can't be out here just listening to anybody. Not everybody is qualified to speak to you. Not everybody is qualified to speak over your life. Not everybody. No. And that is something too that we got to make sure that we're picking up on. We have to ask God, God, what is your intentional? What is this person's intentions with me? I'm being intentional with you. And now that I've gotten to this place where I'm being intentional with you and I want to grow and I want to glow and I want to show people who you really are, but I can't really allow my light to shine because I got all of these different excuses because my senses keep messing me up. My eyes, I see it, God. I see all of the goals. I want to secure the bag. I want this amount of money. I got to work. I got to do all of these things. But God, it's like you're working, you're doing all of the things that you are supposed to do, but are you doing the things that I want you to do? Are you doing the things that I desire for you? Are you living the life that I called you to live? And truthfully, right, a lot of us ain't doing what we supposed to be doing. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, sometimes for me, me knowing that I'm an encourager, right? It's a gift and I love it, right? But sometimes I don't like it so much because the crazy part is like when you're doing encouragement from your own being, it's a difference. But it's a difference when you're encouraging other people when it's God because you hear his voice and it keeps coming back over and over and over to you. And that's when you know that it's of him because he begins to show you more and more of who he is while you're living it. And so when you begin to be like, nah, I don't want to do that, and you run from it, and then you know you get pushed into it even more, right? Because this is exactly what happened with me with the glow up. I knew that this was something that he called me to do, right? Was this podcast. This is just a one step. This is just one step out of the whole puzzle, right? One piece out of the whole puzzle. But at the end of the day, what I do know is that he has something great for me. He has something greater and he wants great for us. Listen, y'all, he wants something great for us, but the enemy don't want us to win. So the enemy will try to get in your ear, whether or not if it's people that's around you. And that's why I say too, we got to be intentional with these relationships that we're entering. We got to be very mindful of the things, because I don't know about y'all, but I want all of the smoke. I want everything that God has for me while I'm here on this earth. I want it all. I want it all. I'm not satisfied until I have it all. And guess what? You ain't even got to worry about nobody else obtaining what's yours, because it's yours. It don't belong to nobody else. So competition and all that, that ain't even a reality. I don't know who or how we even get these misconceptions, right? Of, oh, I'm in competition with her, or let me go over here and do this, and I got to be better than her, and I got to do this, and I got to have this. And that's not what God has called us to do. Like, it's no such thing. Like, you can help your brother, your sister out, right? You can help them out. You can help them out and help build them up and help encourage them. And maybe you don't have all the answers, but maybe you may be a tool. And I say this all the time too, is that we are tools, right? And gifts that God has given other people too. We don't just belong to Him, right? We don't just belong to Him. We have a spouse, like some people desire a spouse, some people maybe they don't, right? But you become one flesh, so you move like one flesh. You just can't be out here just moving and doing what you want to do and not speak to your spouse, right? Beforehand, like your spouse is still the head. And so even with that, it's a partnership. It's not just about you, it's about y'all, right? And the crazy part is, right, is that you got to have people that are on the same level as you, or even people that are beyond where you're, people that are headed in the direction that you're going in. And that's a reality too, right? But when I go back to this story, because this story has really been on my mind, and I'm just like, wow, like our senses can really mess us up. So I really believe that what Eve did, going back to that story, I really believe that Eve got very curious, and the enemy looked for an opportunity, right, to get her by herself, to isolate her, and to really began to question the instructions that were provided to her from her husband and from God. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing about it is that even though she began to question those things, it was almost like she wasn't even sure of what it was that God had told her. She's like, "No, but that's not what he said. He said this." Well, no, he did say that. And then next thing you know, the enemy begins to twist those words and make it sound good. And because it sounded good, right? She's like, "You know what? You're right. I can't eat from this apple." You was already curious. It's temptation. And temptation can destroy us. It can kill us before it even begins to birth anything. And I've just been talking about this too. It's like it's springtime now, right? And the seeds, right? And I think about all of the seeds that I've sown um in the fall. Like I've really been sowing seeds. I've really been sowing seeds. I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about money at this point. I mean, I have sown some money, right? But and sown it into good ground, right? Into some good ground, some good people. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sowing seeds, being able to encourage people, being able to help build them up, being able to just be an ear, right? Because sowing is not just money. And I think I've talked about this before in another episode, but it's real. It's beyond that. And so when you begin to sow, right, there has to be a harvest. It has to be a harvest. And so because there is a harvest, right, you begin to reap all of the benefits. So I'm excited because it's springtime. That means that things are getting ready to blossom. That means that what I've sown, I'm getting ready to reap. There's a harvest that's coming. So I get excited about that. I'm excited because listen, what God did for me in the last season, listen, God gave me a peace, right? He changed my whole environment. He gave me a whole new location. Not only did he give me a whole new location, he's given me new friends, right? He's given me new people to come in contact with, to begin to network, right? With some things that it is that he's called me to do, right? And it's also some other people that's helping me, right? With doing the next step of the glow up. And I'm excited. I can't share the news right now, but it's some stuff that's coming, y'all, with the glow up, because it's a brand. This is not just a brand, but it's a movement, right? And so because it's a movement, right, I can't allow and myself to become like Eve and be deceived, right? Because I have to be mindful of who's in my ear. I have to be mindful of who's sharing with me their insecurities. So because it didn't work for you, it won't work for me. I'm me and you're you, and you were nervous and scared to do that. But because I know who I belong to, which is God first, and because He affirms me in His word, I need no affirmation from man. It's not needed. Like, I don't have to be qualified. I don't need a degree for these things that God has called me to do, because God has called me to do them. So there's going to always be a way for me to get it done because I've answered the call. And so even when the enemy tries to deceive me, right, to try to make things look like, oh, it's going to be this. And I'm like, tag, it look good, but that's a shortcut. And I'm like, oh yeah. Now the Toya a couple of years ago probably would have took this shortcut, right? I probably would have took the shortcut because I probably would have been like, yeah, well, I'll take it. Because I did have somebody that reached out to me and was like, listen, I want to be a part of this movement, right? And I had to pray on it because I got to see some of the things that they were working on, which was cool. But at the same time, it didn't line up. It didn't line up with who God was, right? And I know that for me, at the end of the day, this is something that God has blessed me with, right? To help grow us, right? And so I can't leave God out, right? I'm still me, and I'm still gonna always just say what I got to say because that's what God has called me to do. But I couldn't leave God out because He's the source. So why would I do that, right? And that's what the glow up is. Like, I can't have a light without the light. That don't even make sense. It didn't make sense. So, I didn't really, I had to pray on that thing, and I was just like, wow, God, you just showing me already that, hey, you can't. No, like, I cannot deny who He is, right? And He's the root of this whole thing. Like, He's the glue. He's the brains behind this thing, man. And I know that when God's hand is in it, right, He can do exceedingly and abundantly above anything that I could ever ask for. Like, I sometimes I don't even understand how, right? But God is just so faithful. And for me to be intentional with being consistent, even in this podcast, is a blessing. It's a growth thing. Look, y'all, we growing. It's 2024, and we got so many months left of 2024, right? Like, we're about to end in March, and April 1st is what, Monday? I think it's Monday. And so Monday, we're going to be ready for a new month. Like, we're going into the fourth month of the year. So we'll just have 8 months left in the year. That's it. And so the thing about it is like, I want to maximize my time. And so because I decided that I didn't want to take that shortcut, right? I had to cut it off. But it sounded good. And it was just like, girl, but you can get paid to do this, and I can get you to do this. And I'm just like, it was like, man, well, what profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul? And I'm like, I can't do that. I feel like, God, I'm selling you out. I feel like I'm just turning my back on you just for this money, right? And I'm like, man, it sounded good. And it was crazy because it was like, well, you can say God here and there, but I'm like, I don't want you to dictate to me when I can say God, right? And so I was just like, that's a no-go for me. Like, this is freedom. Like, God says, who I set free is free indeed. And so because I'm free, it's like I have to be who He created me to be. And He said, I'm just going to do what I do best, right? And you're just going to have conversation with the people. And this is what we do. This is what we do. And so, y'all, this is me real time sharing it with you, is that we all go through temptation. We all go through things, and we're all going to have trials. We're all going to have tribulations, but they come to build us, to make us stronger than what we used to be. Like, I'm not even the same person that I was yesterday. You're not either. We're steadily growing. We're steadily evolving. We're steadily getting to the next level, right? Because I talked about that last week too. We talked about the new levels, right? And it's the same devil trying to do the same thing. He's still trying to do the same thing that he did to Eve, trying to get in your head, trying to make you question what God has already given you. That's why I say, who is in your ear? And sometimes the enemy, right, can get in your family's ear, right, to try to deter you, to try to make you, to try to get you to tell you that, no, that ain't, we ain't do that, we ain't never did that before, we ain't never had no doctors in our family. Oh no, our family not good for that, we don't do this, we don't do that. But guess what, boo boo, you need to tell them, yes we do, yes we do. And guess what, it can start with you. You may be the first one to do it. Like you doing what grandma and great grandma couldn't do. You doing something that they were scared to do. See what I'm saying? And you see how the cycle then is broken? Do you see how all of that stuff is trickle effects? Like these things affect us as a people. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And if he can start in your mind, because this is where it starts in your mind. It starts with a thought. So if it goes here in your thought, then it lines up with your heart, then your body is going to follow. Your body is going to follow. And that's hard and that's heavy sometimes because the reality is, right, is that even though the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, right, and he thinks that he can get in your head because he'll surely begin to test you and be like, you sure that's what God told you to do? And you already know that this is what God has called you to do, but yet you talked your whole self out of it, right? Because it's not comfortable or because you don't feel like you had the resources that you need. He's like, well, how you gonna get that? How you gonna get the platform? And that's the first thing that people do. We like, I don't have the money for that. I need the money. And a lot of us is out here chasing a bag, right? At a regular 9 to 5 when you are a millionaire. You sitting on your gifts. But if you invest that same time that you invest in that 9 to 5 into what it is that God has called you to do, because every single one of us have gifts. And I know it's so many people that probably are like, I don't know what my gifts are. I don't know. Listen, things that are come natural to you, things that you don't have to go and get a degree for, things that you don't even have to it just come natural for you to do. That's your gift. Like it's your gift. It's your gift to want to just be there for people. That's a gift. That's a calling. Like God has called you to do that. Like you may want to explore that some more. Okay, God. Okay, so I like people. Let me explore that. That's broad. That's a broad thing. I like people. I don't know why I'm a people person, but God, what do you have for me to do in that area? Right? And so that's the thing too. It's like we're including God in everything that we do. And because we're including him in the things that we do, we leave no room for the enemy to even come in because our foundation is already strong. And that's what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to have it built up. We're supposed to be able to move forward. We're supposed to be able to prosper. We're supposed to win because guess what, y'all? We win. We win at the end of the day. We win at the end of the day. There is nothing that we should be worried about. But the enemy will tell you otherwise. The enemy will tell you, yeah, you got those bills you got to think about. You got to think about them kids that's going to eat the next meal. You got to think about this. You got to think about that. And you barely taking care of yourself. You barely even, you barely even have enough strength to even push on. Like you feel like you're struggling. You feel like you're dangling. But when God says, cast all your cares upon me because I care for you, he really means that. Cast all your cares upon me because only I can take care of that anxiety. Only I can take care of those things that you can't take care of. Do the things that you can control and the rest give it to him. This is what he wants from us. This is a desire of his. It is an honor and a privilege, y'all, to include God in your day, to include him in your relationship. Look, I don't always get it right. Listen, God's still working on me right now, even in this moment with me talking to you. And I promise you, when I'm talking to y'all, I'm talking to myself as well. Like I'm really talking to myself, and I wouldn't be speaking on anything that I haven't experienced. I can't speak on things that I haven't experienced because I don't even feel right when I do speak on things like I'm not comfortable with that. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, what I do know, right, is that God has called us, right, to win. God has called us, right, to be an heir to the throne. He has created us that to know that we are beautifully and wonderfully made. You know, that he loves us no matter what, that his grace is sufficient for our lives, that he loves us just the same, that he loves us so much that he died and rose again. Like he paid it all. Like he set us free. So what are we worried about anything for? Like why worry about anything? Like you are his. You are his. You are his responsibility. You belong to him. Like he wants to do these things for you, but give it to him. We have to be able to give it to him. Sometimes we have to give back God what he's already given to us. I know. I know sometimes it ain't easy. Sometimes it's not easy letting go. Sometimes it's not easy letting things just be. But can you imagine like what else God has for you? And I mean for you. Can't nobody stop it. People will try. And people will try to get in your ear. They're the enemy again. He'll try to trick you. He'll try to trick you, get in your mind, get in your head. But that ain't of him. That ain't of God. God says, no, 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 no. You're not guilty. It's okay. I got you. My grace is sufficient for you. I still love you, even though you do the things that you do, even the things that you shouldn't do, that you know that you shouldn't do, even when you did the things the wrong thing. God says, I'm still here with open arms. The enemy wants to tell you that he doesn't love you, that he's shaming you, that he's just so disappointed in you. And God is like, okay, I'm here with open arms, just waiting for you to receive me. I'm just waiting on you to let me love you, even though it hurts. Like, let me love you through the hurt. Let me love you through the pain. Let me love you through all of the things. Let me love you through even the no's. So I can get you to a yes. Try him. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing here. I love it here. I love it here, y'all. It's amazing. It's an amazing feeling. I love growing. I used to hate it, but I'm loving to grow. Like y'all, I ain't, a cuss word might slip out here and there, right? But I've been really doing really great at that. And I'm growing. I'm growing, y'all. I am really, really growing. Oh my gosh. And it's amazing to be able to say that. It's amazing for me to be able to be free in who he's called me to be. And so I just wanted to get on here, man, just to encourage somebody on today. Like be mindful of the enemy. Be mindful of him being in your ear, whether or not if he's dressed up as a family member or who maybe he's in the bed with you. I don't know. I'm just saying, be mindful. Ask God to show you. Ask God to show you where or who you need to be connected to. And if you need to disconnect, ask God to remove people who are not for you. Just saying, it's there. But anyways, y'all know how we do with the glow up is. So we grow the glow. And so I know sometimes this is tough love, right? It's tough love. And sometimes we don't even want to take accountability for the things, but we have to in order to grow. And so that's what we do. And I'm excited, y'all, because this episode 15. Next week's episode 16. So y'all make sure y'all tune in next week. Episode 16. I'm gonna see y'all. Now I'm gonna be back home next week. So I'm gonna see y'all. See y'all next week. Y'all behave yourselves now until next week, okay? All right. I love y'all. The glow up is. I'll see y'all next week. And